This is Matt Zoller-Seitz for the New York Times. In the history of movie comedy, Airplane represents the moment when everything got a lot faster. It's very much in the tradition of the anarchy spirit of comedy, which is represented by the likes of the Marx Brothers and Laurel and Hardy, and particularly W.C. Fields, whose movies like Never Give a Sucker and Even Break were just about as close to pure surrealism as American studios ever produced. This was what I like to call the dumpster school of comedy, which is it contains anything and everything, and you can just kind of rummage around until you find something that you personally find amusing. The movie was co-directed by a team known as ZAZ, which stands for Jerry Zucker, his brother David Zucker, and Jim Abrams. They come out of a counterculture tradition of comedy. You can see that spirit translate into their first film that they wrote together, Kentucky Fried Movie, which was directed by John Landis. That one is literally structured to suggest that you are sitting there watching TV late at night and just vegging out. Airplane, which was their first movie actually directing, mixes the kind of very dry verbal humor with really crazy visual sight gags. And sometimes they do both in the same frame. Like you might see a couple of people having a conversation in the foreground that's quite silly in its own right, while in the background something just completely demented is happening. Zucker also cited Mad Magazine as an influence. And if you look at Mad Magazine, you can see a similar aesthetic being practiced. Airplane was the most successful comedy release up to that point, and from that point forward there was a new template for comedy. It was that gag-a-minute, densely packed, you can't absorb it all in one sitting school of comedy. You can also see the influence reflected elsewhere in popular culture, particularly in some of the animated shows that came along in the 80s after ZAZ came in. The Simpsons and South Park and Family Guy, to name just three, also operate in this kind of Airplane tradition, trying to see how much they can put into 22 minutes plus commercials. The track record of movies has not been quite as good unless ZAZ was associated with them. Films like Date Movie and Epic Movie and the Scary Movie franchise, which David Zucker himself directed a couple of segments of, have their moments, but they are nothing near the kind of level of delirium that you get from ZAZ at their best. They had their own thing going on, and they did it better than almost anybody. For the New York Times, I'm Matt Zoller-Seitz.